We had a complicated relationship in general. So I had to unpack our relationship in order to even get to this public controversy.
You would land the Cosby Show in 1996 as Griffin. Do you remember even how you got the opportunity to audition? Did you have to audition, or how did you even come into the world of Cosby?
I didn't audition for the show. I had somewhat of a relationship with Mr. Cosby for many years. Like, Where I Live was a show that was very accepted by the black established, group of people, him being one of them. And the show, when it was in jeopardy of cancellation, him, Coretta Scott King, the Congressional Black Caucus, they loved the show, and they were trying to advocate for the show to come back on the air, which they were successful in getting us a second season. So that was the first time I became aware. Because I received, and next time I was doing Cool Runnings in Jamaica, and I got a letter from him when the show premiered. So that was the first time I established I was aware that he was aware of me.
Yeah. Did you automatically see what Cosby was trying to do with his show?
Yeah.
Because, the whole conspiracy of he tried to buy NBC, and it's wrapped into of him pushing our image and seeing us in a different light. That's how I've interpreted it. Is that accurate? And more so of, was he clear about that on set?
Oh my God. Yeah. Very clear, very explicit in terms of the objective. I mean, you'd have to be if you're trying to accomplish something as complicated as that, given the nature of what we know network television usually puts out. So it's really, you have to be counter-cultural.
How serious did he get? I've heard some stories of him cussing, he cusses, behind closed doors, but did it ever get to a point where there was an incident on set and he was like, nah, this is not writing, whether it be an executive, whether it be a writer, whether it be just any type of, did you remember something specifically that you could share
all the time
that stands with you?
Well, that was a regular occurrence, that there was always him raising his voice and letting people know what it was and what it wasn't going to be. That is just his show. Saying, stuff like, whose name is on this? You know what I mean? Like, this is about as gangster as you can get, basically. Whose name is on this? There was a lot of that. There was a lot of insistence on a particular kind of vision, and you can't be that successful and not raise your voice and not be assertive and not insist. And that's also a message for young people. It's almost like you have to not be as concerned with your reputation. This is a generation of people worshiping their reputation, and sometimes you got to get a little dirt on you in order to accomplish things that are very difficult to accomplish.
That's true. One thing about Cosby, it seemed like he would kind of spread his messages beyond even his own space. Yes. There's a story of him calling Eddie Murphy.
Yes.
And pretty much checking him about his language on stage.
Right.
Did you agree with Cosby going to that extent, even though he is an OG? Do you agree with him maybe reaching out to Eddie?
I think things like that are misunderstood by people who make mischief. I think that old heads have a role. They played a role in the community. They definitely used to play it a lot when I came up. And it was just an extension. Just because it's in the suites and not in the streets, it don't mean it's the same old shit. Like, so you don't have to agree, but you will hear me. I'm a father, so I do that on every day, all day. Like, so not everybody's petulant and upset about it. Some people just say, all right, man, I hear you, and go about their business. I think that it sounded like at that time, Eddie was, in his feelings about it. And when I was young, I might have been, when I was at the age that I heard that, I was just like, that's not right. Let him do what he wanted to, But I understand both sides of the situation now that I've passed through, now that I've been young and hot and old and not. I'm like, okay, I get it. This is the way, communities have to, this is a functional community. When you have a functional community, we all don't think the same. We benefit from having a diversity of opinion, in my view.
Now, one thing about, Cosby reaching out to Eddie. In recent years, Eddie somewhat of slightly regretted, it seemed, one of his jokes. So I wonder
Yeah.
if that kind of just tied into Cosby being like right at that moment and maybe Eddie not seeing it for
Yeah,
what it was.
I'm sure he understands now where he was coming from. I'm sure he understands now.
Now with Cosby, in recent years, the name has represents different things to different people now.
Yes.
When these allegations first surfaced,
hmm
did it hurt you? Did it confuse you? Did it?
I struggled with those allegations, because I struggled with our entire relationship. We had a complicated relationship in general. So I had to unpack our relationship in order to even get to this public controversy, which a lot of people didn't understand, because there's an expectation for me to, join the bandwagon, or, defend or whatever. I'm like, yo, it's like if somebody said like your uncle is a purse snatcher, you still got a whole history with your uncle. Every time you see your uncle, be like, morning, purse snatcher. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have a history. You got great things that the person do went and got chocolate, ice cream for you. Or, you say, so that's where I was at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in hearing that, and knowing some stories with Cosby in terms of younger talents that have worked with him, did you guys have like a falling out of sorts?
We did not have a falling out. No, we didn't have a falling out. We ceased to work with each other anymore. He let me know in the beginning it was business. I met with him at his house. He was like, "This is business." I mean, it ended up, I think, being more of a defensive thing, in the sense of, I just want to set the groundwork so you don't come in here asking for favors. But that's what he has to do. That's what a person of that stature, wealth, whatever.
Don't get caught up.
They got to lay the groundwork. It may not be necessarily what the relationship is going to stay like that, but from the beginning, you got to be like, look, learn your lines, shut up, do what I tell you. As long as it's not a religious objection, do what the fuck I say. And get this money.
Yeah. We had interviewed Carl Anthony Payne.
Yes.
Out of Harlem. He was a cockroach.
Yes.
On the Cosby Show. And he would reveal to us he fell out with Cosby for his role. Were you around that time when he disappeared from the show?
No, I was on his second show, so I didn't know. I had heard about it. It was very famous story about his hairstyle. And I mean, if you're gonna lose a job for Jerry curls, you really love that look,
Did it make you think about, you had locks back then? Did it make you think?
It made me think about it, yes, but he never had any issue with it. Never. And then when I saw one of his children, his daughters, I realized, oh, she's got it too. So it wasn't.
It was kind of more. It was.
I think it's more of a cultural look as opposed to Jerry curls, which are not. They're chemicals.
You think that's why his stance was? It felt like,
I don't know his rationale, but I know that obviously dreadlocks can grow naturally from the hair, and Jerry curls don't.
It's a process. Too.
It's a process. You got to respect the process.
Now there was a conversation that Eddie Griffin was having.
Yes. About
Cosby, and he was saying that Hollywood doesn't allow black men to leave with their hands unclean.
Right.
That was his,
I've heard that
analysis. Mm-hmm. Do you find that to be true? When you reach a certain stature, and in Cosby particular, do you feel that these allegations that have now kind of surfaced in recent years was more orchestrated?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's orchestrated. I do believe that it's very hard not to have your name dirtied, or it's just very hard. So you don't even need to speculate about whether or not it's conspiratorial. It's just hard because the temptations are great. The scrutiny that's associated with black artists and black people, generally speaking, it's hard to have your hands not dirtied at the DMV. This is just being black. It's like, Other people always say, you see it with what Stephen A. said about Udoka. It's like, why aren't the white ones? Blah 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 blah. It's because they're white. That's why. They're not blowing up their spot because they're white.
Yeah.
It's almost like we have to be, unjustly resilient. We have to be more disciplined. That's still the case, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity. It's not a burden, in my view. Be on point. That's what young men need to know. Be on point. Watch out for this. They watching you. Parents are saying that every day to their young black boys. So it's not just because the cat ends up being in an entertainment industry doesn't mean that the rules have changed.
Yeah. You got that conversation I mentioned previously about Cosby wanted to buy NBC.
Mm-hmm.
And the conspiracy is that since he was trying to buy NBC, this was them taking him out.
Right.
Have you heard that?
I've heard it. Yes.
I mean, the truth of it is, I believe he was trying to partner with GE.
Right.
And they
owned it at the time. GE owned it at the time.
And he was trying to get a hold of it.
Well, he did tell me that he had his investment group that he put together. So it wasn't like a willy-nilly thing. Like he had the money, and they took the meeting. But I don't know if I should say what he said, but he had his own idea of why the deal didn't go through. But he had his own ideas.
Yeah, because I think, just looking at that would have been extremely powerful.
Yes.
To have that. And powerful, not in the sense of him as an individual, but our people having an outlet that cared about them.
Of course.
That didn't just exploit them, that really gave a fuck. I'll use that language.
Yes.
About them, which is I'm hoping that we're trying to do with our platform.
Absolutely.
It's kind of what we try to be clear about.
Thank you for your platform, because we need that in these spaces. We need affirmation, and we need upliftment desperately. And people forget that when they say, this person's not perfect, or this person did this wrong. It's like, what is that person doing for the culture?